Okay, so conference this week is on the latter limbs of the Ashtanga practice. So we've been studying the 5th, 6th, and we moved into the 7th limb of the Ashtanga 8 limbs. What's the first one? Pratyahara, good job. So withdrawing from the senses. On our yoga mats, we try to not be distracted by smells and sights and noises and all those kind of things, so we focus. And then what's the 6th limb? Ricky?
Dharana.
Yes, Dharana, which means to focus, concentrate. The literal translation is to hold. So the idea being that we're trying to hold our mind in one place. And then last week we talked about this little space in between my 2 fingernails when we're moving into a higher state of yoga or a higher state of consciousness through withdrawing from the senses and focusing. We then reach this point of what? Dhyana, which is meditation. So in the yoga practice, we kind of have these different stages that bring us to this place of what is meditation? What is that thing called meditation? Yeah, it's all those things, right? It's focusing your mind, it's being present, it's being in the present moment. It's a state of being where we're fully aware, right? All of that being meditation. So what's interesting about the yoga is we are not just a physical practice like going to the gym and just getting our body strong or flexible. We're not just a seated meditation practice like a Zen practice or Dzogchen or one of these traditions. We're yoga, we're this combination of the two. That's what makes yoga very unique, because one without the other, it's not yoga. You could do the best yoga poses and put your foot behind your head and be in third series, but if you weren't also concentrating and focusing your mind and being present, even Pattabhi Jois would say, it's just gymnastics, right? So we need those two combined. The interesting thing about yoga is that we're actually going to learn to train the mind through the vehicle of the body. So we have this, these 3 things that we use as our method to kind of focus and train our minds that we call Tristana. Trini being 3, we've been reviewing this every week, so what's Tristana? The first one, breath. Second one, drishti, your gazing point. Third one, vinyasa, so how we enter and exit asana. And I won't go on about that too much because we've reviewed it every week. But what I will say is that that is a method for us to train our minds. So again, when you're on your yoga mat, you're focusing on the quality of your breath and the quality of your gazing point and these little spaces in between. I was saying on Sunday, triangle pose has how many vinyasas? 1, 2, 4. Right, so 4, we move on 5. So in this tradition, we would say, you find your meditation where? Those little moments in between, I was saying, let's just say the 3rd vinyasa. The 3rd vinyasa is interesting to me. The 3rd vinyasa is interesting to me because you're not on the right side and you have not quite entered the left side. You're in this space in between, which is where we find meditation, is one way to think of it, right? Because so often in our lives, we're always over there or over here. So I'm always thinking about what I'm going to do tonight or something I said earlier today. I'm in those 2 places where I just want to be in the space which is right now. And yoga gives us a place to practice it. You know, and if we know just from, for example, me practicing chaturangas all the time, then I have a strong back and strong shoulders and strong arms, right? So the idea of me trying to practice being present in this space in between the current moment is where I can also find how to be present in my life, right? This is a place I get to practice it. So on Saturday, we were doing Mysore practice, and one of my students, who's also a coach, said to me that his mind was running him on something that happened with another coach or something like that. He's like, I'm having such a hard time. My mind is somewhere else today. And we talked about it a little bit, but it was interesting because it was one of the beautiful things about the practice is this is where we're fully aware of that. Because the same situation, you know, if he was driving to work, let's say, or he was at work doing something and he was thinking about this coaching situation, he might not have even been aware of it, right? Because the mind is always jumping around, so we're not even aware it's jumping around half the time. So the yoga mat or the yoga practice gives us this rectangle to practice training the mind, you know, to be where we want it. So I was saying, I had a similar example. I was on the phone with someone on Friday, and something came up on the phone that sort of tweaked me a little bit, and I was going on a hike with my dogs, and sure enough, I'm hiking, seeing the ocean, it's so beautiful out, my dogs are so happy, and what do you think I'm thinking about? The thing that tweaked me on the phone, right? So I'm like, let it go. You're on this hike, it's beautiful outside. So I let it go and I'm hiking, what happens? Boom, it comes back, right? Same thing, train it. You're on this hike right now, let it go, whatever. So I was saying it only took me 2 times before I enjoyed the rest of my hike, and it reminded me of my dog Taya, who, when I first got Taya, maybe for a while after having Taya, they sit. Sit, sit. How many times do I have to tell her to sit before I really trained her that I tell her once and she sits, right? So how many dog cookies do I have to give her to train her to sit? But it's the same for our brain. You know, we're constantly training ourselves as well to sit, to tell our mind, sit, no, come here, sit. And if I practice it on my mat and I get kind of good at it here, then the idea is then when I want to go for a hike and I want to enjoy my hike, my brain's not running me on something else. That is the benefit of having a yoga practice where we're not only physically training our bodies, but we're always training our brain. So this week what I want to ask you is this. I feel like it's my great honor to be a teacher, and so this week I was thinking of it as you've all hired me for something. You've hired me to be your teacher. And as your teacher, it's easy enough for me to lead a class today and say, everyone be in chaturangas, everyone's 4 breaths in down dog. But it's an extra challenge for me as a teacher to find ways to push you past your normal, to move deeper into the latter part of the practice. It's easier for me as a teacher to see everyone in chaturanga, hold everyone in chaturanga. It's harder for me to find ways to hold your mind here. You know, so I'm this year really trying to find new ways and find ways to really push you more as your teacher and say, I want you guys to get what we were talking about all semester or all year, which is a John Milton quote, for this to become your heaven. Right? And this is your training ground. If I'm a decent teacher, I'm going to challenge you to keep making this your heaven on your yoga mat. So when you guys go home and you're hiking, you're having dinner with the person you love, or something is really stressing you out at work or whatever, you are strong in your mind, you're flexible in your mind to bring it back to where you want it. So today, I'm going to challenge you this way. Perfect breath. Really good drishti today, focusing. And I'm just going to stop as I do. Little spaces in between where I want you to find yourself in the 3rd vinyasa of triangle pose, totally present. I'm just going to, gentle reminders throughout the practice to keep bringing yourself back here, because if you guys get good at it on your mats, it's life-changing stuff off your mats. So your quotes to inspire you this week are actually 3. We have 3 quotes. I've looped them together for one message. The first one is by Sean Aker. You can study gravity forever without learning how to fly. And I added to that Guruji's quote, practice, 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 and ending with Eleanor Roosevelt, do something every day that scares you. Or I added, that challenges you. So if you want to fly, if you want to make this your heaven, we have to practice. And once we get ourselves practicing, we also need to push ourselves a little bit and challenge ourselves in ways that might be a little bit scary, or ways that feel like we're breaking old patterns. So I encourage all of you this week to use your yoga practice to challenge yourselves.